You are listening to Unstoppable Actors, the essential podcast for ambitious, aspiring actors. With me, Louise, the artistic director of Standby Method Acting Studio. And every week, I'll be talking with you and sharing how you can become a paid, working, unstoppable actor, because you 1000% can. An acting career is doable. Are you ready? Today, we've got an incredible guest returning to our Unstoppable Actors podcast. This is not the first time you have been on our podcast, Luke. So Luke was on our podcast back in March 2020 when the very first lockdowns hit. And we're going to be talking to him today to find out what's been happening with his acting career over the last 2 years, because, of course, lots of actors and aspiring actors have been struggling post-pandemic, post-lockdowns. Obviously, the industry's took a bit of a hit, but Luke has really rode the momentum that he started before the lockdowns. And I want to really pick your brain about, what it's taken to do that, what you've actually done to inspire our listeners. But for those of you that didn't get the opportunity to listen to that first podcast, Luke has been a student of Standby Method Acting Studio for a long time. He's trained on all 16 of the 10-week method acting modules. He started with absolutely zero experience. And I think I'm correct in saying you didn't even do GCSE drama at school, did you?
No, I didn't know.
And he's recently just completed filming on Netflix. And a few days ago, he was directed by the very same director who directed Al Pacino. How bloody exciting is that? So you've really got some momentum going with your career, where many others, for whatever reason, and there's no shade, no shame on them, have lost motivation or they've really been struggling. So can you share with us then, Luke, a brief summary of the different projects that you've been working on and what really has been going on in your career since the last time we spoke on the Unstoppable Actors podcast back in March 2020?
Yeah, so I think it started around May of 2021, really, because for the first year of the lockdown, the industry was more or less on its knees in terms of there were only the long-term productions of the recurring soaps for filming. So unless you're already casting something before, due to the financial issues that were taking place in the industry, a lot of actors were out of work, therefore. So the first one that I did was a feature film in Scotland. That was May of last year. And then afterwards, it just kept on snowballing. But especially since Christmas and the New Year, it's been a case of I've been working a lot more regular. And I think that's because the industry's opened up as well. But I think it's also a case of just being consistent with what I've done. So I did the Netflix series. I was casting that just before the New Year. And I filmed that a couple of weeks ago. And then I've done several feature films in the last few weeks, a couple of shorts. So yeah, it's been a very busy period and one that I'll look back on and also be very grateful for the opportunities. But also at the same time, it's hard work paid off, and I'm not surprised, and that might sound arrogant to some people, but I put a lot of hard work into where I want to be, and it's not the finished article, it's nowhere near, but I feel that it's kind of just reward for the hard work that I put in. So I'm just enjoying it at the moment.
That's so exciting and so inspiring to hear, because 7 weeks of back-to-back paid acting work is what you have got. And you're right, it is down to the work ethic that you've got. And this is something I really want to drive home to the rest of our acting students, at Standby, and the rest of our listeners of the Unstoppable Actors podcast. Is it really is a numbers game, and it is about consistency. So the reason I've got you onto the podcast is because we've all got our big acting inspirations, like Al Pacino, who I've just mentioned, or Leonardo DiCaprio, Denzel, Meryl Streep, Angelina Jolie, Viola Davis, whoever. We've all got our big acting inspirations who probably are the reason we even got into acting in the first place. But the reason I brought you onto the podcast is because sometimes when we look at these bigger actors, it can feel a little bit far away, can't it? Like, oh, well, they're in Hollywood and I'm here in my house doing my day job that I'm not really enjoying. I'm not getting fulfillment from it. And it can feel like they're very, very far away. And sometimes it can feel like, will I ever achieve the success that I want as an actor. Whereas someone like yourself, who is not in Hollywood just yet, you're a little bit closer to home for people. Do you know what I mean? Like you're a little bit closer for people. Like it's like you're within touching distance because you are closer to that journey that our listeners are on right now or are about to start and embark upon, which is why I wanted to get you onto the podcast, because I feel we need constant inspiration as actors. So what has it actually taken then to go from absolutely no experience right back at the very beginning of your journey when you first decided you wanted to be an actor to go into 7 weeks of full-time acting, which you're getting paid for, and you're going from project to project? Like, what has it actually taken to go from there to where you are now?
I think first and foremost, it's learning from mistakes. You know, I made a lot of mistakes on the way, and at the time, I felt that was something that was going to be a detriment to myself. But in the long term, learned from those mistakes, reflected on what worked and what didn't work, and straight away, I was very knowledgeable that I didn't have the luxury of being from a family of rich people, or having people connected to the industry, which is 9 times out of 10 a lot of the reasons why people get to where they are, and I wasn't in that position. So like, how can I carve my own journey? And the one thing that I knew that I could beat others at was going to be my work ethic, and it was going to be my determination to make my life better for myself. And my goals were going to be outlandish to begin with, but also putting them into reality. So it was really shaping a vision of where I wanted to be, and also setting short-term goals was probably the biggest key for me, was setting short-term realistic goals rather than having outlandish, like I've said, goals of becoming an overnight success, which does happen, but it's very rare. You have to work your way up, and that's what I wanted to do. So it was a case of having like little building blocks that I felt was achievable, looking back, reflected on what was working, create a formula where I could use that to my advantage and go from there. The biggest thing that I found was really creating a mindset that you are already a professional actor. And I think if you're in a case of, I'm never going to reach that, that's got a negative connotation to it, because you've got, I'm not, you've got that, I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet. And rather than, I am an actor, I am training, I am working. So that's the biggest thing for me that I really think I can take back from. The longer I've been working, of course, the longer I've been training, the longer I've been in the industry itself, I've learned to really focus on certain areas and really use what I've got to my advantage, because there's no one else like myself. And so rather than looking at the actors that, I want to be similar to in the future, and I want other people to look at me, and, that's one thing that I want to do, is I want to reach out to people that don't think it's possible for a guy or a lady from a working class background, to get to where anything's possible. So I want to be an inspiration to others in the future, but I don't really look at them and think, I've got, they're so far ahead of me. The biggest competition is yourself. Once you get over that, once you get over the mindset that you can be your number one biggest supporter, but you can also be your number one biggest enemy at the same time, and hold yourself back and make excuses. Once you get rid of those excuses and be like, I can't do it for this reason, and that reason, and that reason, but how can I resolve the stumbling blocks that come across and could prevent you in usual circumstances from preventing you, and get over that? And I think then really you're in a position where, it's limitless, the things that you can do. So, I've had a lot of times where I've been, in a situation where it's not been ideal for me to kind of really think I'm not, putting myself down in a way, but then also at the same time, the longer that I've been training, the longer I've been acting, and getting more mature as a person as well, and doing a lot of self-development and learning who I am as a person, really owning it. That's the last couple of things I've been in the last 2 years, especially owning who I am as an actor, and not really caring what others think. That's where it's changed for me.
Can I just go back to something that you've said? I think that's all like really, really amazing what you've shared. And you've said you've had this mindset of, I am a professional actor. did you, because obviously I really want to drive home to everyone, you started with zero experience. Like, you haven't been to a traditional drama school. Apart from standby, like standby was the first professional training you ever did. Like, you did no GCSE drama. You didn't do like drama activities outside of school. So I really want to drive home that you have come from absolutely no experience, which is one of the things that it's the biggest question I get all the time. Can I start with no experience? Well, yeah. How does anyone start anything in life? Of course you can. But you said, I have this mindset that I am a professional actor. So when you were starting with no experience, your very first class, which is obviously the start of your journey as an actor, were you even thinking then, I am a professional actor?
I don't think to begin with I was. I'm going to be honest. I think that kind of like, that was through learning and through making those mistakes, getting slipped into other people's thought processes and them not necessarily being my own, and getting sucked into that negativity and that doubt.
So what's that negativity and doubt that you might have got sucked into then?
It's only a hobby, I can never do it because I live in Sheffield. I'm a northerner. This is I can't do this. I can't do that. And so I was then getting sucked into that myself. I used to do that myself. I still do every now and again. But once it changed to, I've got to start living and acting and coming across as if I am that person. That's not putting a persona on. A lot of that is changing the mindset, from early on in. I think the thing about going to drama school, especially this connotation that you have to go to drama school, is a principle that's been put in place by a certain number of people from generations back. And so people just then, set up this rhetoric that, yes, you have to copy that. And I don't think that that's true. I think just because someone else does it doesn't mean you have to follow the trend. Just because there's a line of people that are going along one line, why do you have to follow it? You don't. You create your own path. You look at...
I'm here for that all day long. And I did go to drama school. And drama school wasn't right for me. And it's not right for a lot of people. And for some people it is. And that's why I set up Standby to be an alternative, alternative option to drama school, because that is not the only line into the industry. And you're proof of that.
Yeah, one thing that I want to do is change the industry. That's what I want to do. I'm a bit of a rebel in that sense, that I don't think that, I want people to come from normal backgrounds. And the thing that I would say that really shapes to really be successful as an actor or as a performer or a creative in general is you have to have experience in life. You have to have lived life. Yeah. That's the one. And then, but people go, I've been through a lot. Well, use it then. Because in drama school, it's 3 years of training. Yes, it is. But at the same time, you come out of the other end and there are actors that are in the same position as me or behind that's been to drama school and, been to drama schools that is meant to be that's the way in, and it's not. There's certain ways to really achieve to where you want to get to, rather than just go, oh, I'm going to follow the route of everyone else. And that's one thing I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do that before I even started acting. I didn't want to follow the trend and do what everyone else wanted to do. I wanted to create my own narrative and control it. And that's one thing that I was, I suppose, in a time in my life where I was fed up of doing what everyone else wanted to do. What I was doing for other people. And I was a case of, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing it differently. And, training is important. Of course it is. I'm not saying it's not. That's why I trained for so long at Standby and still continue to do so, because I value the training. I think every actor should train. I find it really quite offensive when I see actors that just get one role on TV and stop training. It's like, do you see professional footballers stop training when they're playing for Barcelona and Manchester City and all? Every other profession trains. Musicians train. Musicians keep on top of it. Why have actors got this thing that they've got a God-given right not to train? And it's like, why do we rest on his laurels? We are, as actors, we are a mirror to society. That's what we are. We are mirrors to society that we hold up in a creative environment. We can create change, and I find it quite, not upsetting, because that's their personal choice. But I think that every actor, obviously that's their choice to do so, whether they do so or not. But I just find it quite weird that actors don't think that it's important to train, especially in the UK. Especially, in America, I think it's a lot more, push that you should continue training. And there are people that do train in the UK. Of course they do. I see a lot of people that attend various classes around the country. But there's this thing about, they get one role on a certain TV program, for instance, and then they never train again. They put the noses up at it. So that's one thing that I noticed, that I'm not going to be like that. You know, I'm going to book the trend. I'm going to create my own trend. I'm not going to follow what everyone else wants to do. And again, people are like, oh, you know, you've got to be humble and this, that, and the other. You know, just doing what everyone else wants to do, and you know, being this vision of I'm going to be this, you know, just to please others, isn't going to get you anywhere. It's not going to get you anywhere. You know, you've got to be ruthless, and you've got to be. This is what I'm doing, and this is why. And once you're crystal clear what you want, then anything's possible.
I 100% agree with you, and I'm exactly the same. Like, how can you? I mean, there's this idea out there in the industry, but you learn your craft on set. Well, yeah, you learn how to be on set. You learn the technicalities of, you know, the different shots and the setups of the shots and how to hold yourself in those shots and eye lines, etc. But you don't learn things like effective memory, objects of attention, relaxation, sense memory on set. They're the things that you learn in your training, and you bring that to set.
I'll give you a scenario from Sunday. It was quite a quick turnaround from Saturday to Sunday. I just did a day job on a film, and it could be quite nerve-wracking to go into a situation where I don't know the crew, I don't know the cast, I'm only there for one day. You know, this thing about will they like me, because that, you know, that's a thing that human beings, you know, will like be accepted into this tribe and into this kind of social setting where people know each other. And yes, you know, you have to have a certain form of etiquette. You know, come across as professional, this, that, and the other. Be, you know, I'm always myself. You know, I think that's important, to be authentic. And don't be somebody that you're not. I think that's one massive thing that I would say, you know, as a bit of advice, just to be yourself, because that's what you cast as. They cast you as you, not as a caricature or as somebody else that you're not. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I will say, that to take that back, was the training. It was very much a quick, right, let's get him in costume, let's get him in makeup. So I'm processing, thinking, oh, I've got a lot of time here to relax. And it weren't like that. Sometimes it is like that. It was very quick, snappy. Let's get him on set. The director was telling me information that was like very, like, you know, vague, which sometimes happens. And it's like, this is what you're doing. So they trust that you know what you're doing. Yes. They don't really give you much direction. So they just go, right, so you're there, you're blocking it there, and then we're ready. And then we do a rehearsal, and that's it. So then one thing that I then went back to straight away was make a choice. That is the first thing automatically. It's instinctive now. Make a choice. Why am I saying what I'm saying? Why am I moving there? Why am I opening this door? Why am I talking to this person? Like, you know, those are the things that the training instills in you, because you can be all of a sudden be from, yeah, I've got this job. I'm driving down to this so-and-so place. You know, there's this cast member in it. There's this guy, you know, there's this, it could lead to this, this and this. But then all of a sudden you're a rabbit in the headlights, and then you fuck up your one chance. You're like, if people don't think that you do a good job, I mean, I got very good feedback, and you know, I'm very happy for that. But I know for a fact that I knew what I was doing before. I knew straight away. I could tell it was going to be a very quick-paced environment. Some are not like that. But then it goes back to the training, having that air of knowing what you're doing. And that goes back to the craft. It goes back to the craft. Some people can wing it and get away with it. But, you know, I'd rather know what I'm doing and know for sure what I'm doing and nail it as much as I can. And know that when I leave that set and I'm driving back home, I know that I've done the job, rather than thinking, oh, I could have done a better job there. Because you get one opportunity in life, and also as a creative, especially in this industry, you might get one opportunity with one director. If they don't like the experience that you've worked with them, that's it. They'll never see you again. So I got very good feedback. Got very good feedback off the AD, you know, and I'm like, because I knew I did my job. And people go, yeah, well, you know, you're probably a good people person. First and foremost, I know my craft. I know what my strengths are. I know what I still need to work on, but I know what my strengths, you know, I know what I'm good at. So then when it came to the fast-paced environment and the quick turnaround of scenes, it was very quick, snappy, short, like a bit of a TV soap environment where, you know, they don't do many takes. It's 2 or 3 at most, and then they're on to the next setup.
And that's the thing. If you don't have a craft behind you, obviously I don't know what the scene was that you were doing, but let's say the scene is a highly emotionally charged scene. And let's say you're an actor and it's this quick-paced environment, which that can throw an actor off. Yeah. That quick-paced environment can throw an actor off. I mean, I remember doing a feature film many years ago, and I was sharing a scene with an actress who had, and I'm not going to say her name, but she had been in one of the UK's leading soaps, and she'd been in it for a long, long time. And the director all of a sudden just decided, listen, we're throwing away the script. We're not using the script for this scene. We're just going to improv it. And this actress turned around to me and she was like, what's improv? I could not believe my ears. This is an actress who's getting paid a hell of a lot of money to be on the UK's leading soap in a, she was a well-known actress in a well-known role, and she did not know what improv was. That's just the basics.
And that's and that's a bit of a myth that every actor in those TV projects. Let me break it down to you. There are a lot of shit actors at the top, and that might sound who is being controversial. There are. Watch TV. They're there because the face fits, and I don't want to be that. I want to get there because I'm good at what I fucking do. I'm old school, and this might sound quite weird. I want to get there because my meritocracy, the way that I work, deserves it. I want to do what the likes of Al Pacino and Robert De Niro used to do and graft my way to the top. It's not easy, but I know that I'm there because I deserve to be there because I'm the best actor that they chose. Nothing to do with what I look like, nothing to do with what my mum and dad are called and what they're producing and what they've done this, that, and the other. I'm there because I deserve to be so. And when people break it down that you've got to be where, you've got to know what you're doing. It all boils down back to that because, again, the scene was a bit of a bank heist. This guy who was a bigger character than myself, he'd been in a bit of a standoff, a bit of a drug deal situation. He'd come out, he'd been shot. So it was quite an intense situation. So he's there, he's basically been shot. So he's got all this blood over him and it's telling me she's set us up, this, that, and the other. So I've got to know the given circumstances, like, having that awareness, and rather than and again, if you're not prepared for that, if you don't know what the circumstances are and you go into it with a laid back attitude, that'll come across in the edit. You've got to know what you're doing. It's as simple as that. You can't wing it. And that's why I always say to people, should I train? Yes, the first thing you should do is train.
Yeah.
The first thing you should do is train.
Absolutely. That was just going to take me back to the example I was going to use is like if it was a really, let's say, because a lot of actors get bogged down with the emotional work and the emotional connections. So let's say it was, a highly charged emotional scene. Maybe there's tears or maybe there's anger or the frustration or something else going on. The fact that it's a quick turnaround anyway on the set puts pressure on you as an artist. And that starts to take you away from your imagination and from your creativity. So then let's say, okay, so we're under this high pressured environment, and now I've got this scene which demands of me these emotions, and I haven't trained because I did not see the value in the training. But now I'm struggling because I can't connect. I cannot produce this emotion that the scene needs of me. What do you do? Like you're right. You have one shot. And it's not even just one shot with that one director. What I try and instill in you guys at Standby is you don't know who that director knows. It's not what people are saying to you whilst you're in the room with them. It's what they're saying about you when you're not in the room. Because that director might know 10 other directors, and then them 10 other directors know 10 other directors. What you're doing is filtering through into the industry right from the get-go. Even in your student films where most people start off, even in your amateur plays where most people start off, it's filtering through your work ethic, your talent. It's all filtering through to other people because people talk about people. We do it. We do it in day-to-day life.
And it all goes back down to creating your own image and owning it. And what do you want to be as an actor? Do you want to be respected? Do you want to, when you turn up on a set, command space, have a presence about you? But also at the same time, still being polite, still being humble, still being I'm quite easy to be around on set. But when it comes to filming, I take it seriously because I value my work. I don't want to be somebody that's just missing these opportunities that I am getting. I don't want to just do 50% of it. I want to give it my all. So when it's time to go and it's time to focus and it's time to work, that's what I do. And I always think I don't want to. The thing that drives me is you get one chance at life. I don't want to get to when I'm 75, 80 hopefully I live till 175, 300. I never want to die. I'm scared of it. But one thing that when I do get older is I want to look back and know that I've given it a good crack. And my acting career, I've done all that I could in my utmost by giving it everything. I've been quite lucky that I did a job before where I met people that weren't very well and, had a limited lifespan. And,
Can you
that's
just expand on that a little bit so our listeners understand where you're coming from with that?
So I worked in a hospice or palliative care unit with people who had like life-limiting illnesses. So I met a lot of people that were in the last stages of their life, and it was a very humbling experience. And that's given me a lot, actually, long-term motivation, actually, to meet people and come across people and to get to know them. And the one thing that kept coming up was make most of your life. I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have done that. I wish I'd have visited this place. I wish I'd have, and it's like, it's so correct.
Enjoying this episode? Feeling inspired? Feeling pumped? Feeling like you want some of the same of what Luke's experiencing? We're just going to take a quick break to let you know that applications are currently open for places on the spring 2022 10-week method acting modules. We have modules available for youths aged 14 to 17 and for adults aged 17 plus. This is for actors who are ambitious. It's for actors who want to experience something similar to what Luke has been sharing in the podcast. After every single class, you will feel inspired, motivated, more committed to your acting goals. You will also have improved your acting skills and got them to a level which will get you casting roles, and you'll be more knowledgeable about the industry. So if you want to apply to audition for a place in our spring 2022 10-week method acting modules, all you need to do is click the link underneath this episode, which will take you to the application form. Auditions are Sunday the 27th of March. I can't wait to receive your application form.
Because this isn't a rehearsal. It's not like you wake up one day, you're like, oh, I get a second chance. There's one crack at it. So whilst you're on this plane in this, in this sphere, in this physical presence, what I call myself Luke, I've got one chance as Luke. I might come back as, bloody Margaret in two dimensions time, but for now I'm Luke. So what I'm saying is, why waste it? Why waste it? You've got to give it everything. There's no point complaining about something if you've done it half-assed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You aren't really a right to complain then if you're given 50%.
Do you know what? I just want to pick up on something there, because death massively, massively motivates me. It never used to when I was younger, because I feel like, well, depending on everyone's life experience and circumstances are all different, but I'd not experienced death in my family till I was 19, which was when I was at drama school. My great-grandma died. And that knocked me for 6, but I continued with my training and I continued with my vision to become an actress. But actually the most recent death that I experienced, which is going to sound bonkers to some people, but it is what it is. It's my experience of it, was actually losing my cat, who meant so much to me. That really brought it home to me, because I thought she had at least another 5 years left in her, and she didn't. And that brought home to me that we don't know when that comes upon us. We don't know when death comes upon us. That's the only unknown of life. We all know we're going to die, but we don't know when it'll be. And that drives me more than anything. And so what I want to bring to the table here, which I think is what you're saying, is you've got to find your motivation for doing this, and the motivation has to be strong. And I would also like to add on to that what you've just been saying about half-arsed, if you're half-arsed about an acting career, don't do it. You've got to know with every fibre of your being that this is what you want, because it is bloody hard. It is a bloody hard career to crack, but it's doable. It is doable. It's not to say it isn't. So this now brings me on to my next point, because we were just talking before I hit record, and I was asking you, like, how many castings have you applied for on a weekly basis since you first started out, which was 11 years ago, wasn't it? And you said on average, you have been applying for 15 castings per week over the last 11 years. So I did the maths, and that equates to 7,920 castings that you have applied for in total over the last 11 years, which ties into the like, you're motivated and you want to leave a legacy in your lifetime and you want to inspire others, which is what you've been saying. So I was like, okay, how many jobs have you got out of those 7,920 castings you've applied for, and you said you think it's around 45. So I took that number and I worked out the percentage, and that means you have been casting 0.56% of the jobs you have applied for. That number is tiny. It is tiny. It's not even 1%. You haven't even been casting 1% of the bloody jobs you have applied for. However, this is not to put a downer on this. This is inspiring. This is inspiring, because the biggest question I get asked, as well as like, can I start with no experience, is how do you find auditions? And I always say, it's easy to find auditions. Get yourself on casting sites, get yourself in Facebook groups, get yourself on Twitter, have a look around. It's easy to find the auditions. Auditions come every single day. The hardest part is getting bloody casting them.
And that goes back to the craft, because you're not going to get the job if you're shit at what you do.
Yep.
You know. Well, sometimes that does happen in a lot of TV programs. Actually, I question the casting on it, you know, and again, that might, but you know, a lot of 9 times out of 10, you initially get seen because they look at your show reel. If you're lucky to get one, you know, and then it's due to ability. It's easy to, like you said, it's easy to look for auditions, but it's about knowing how to first and foremost get a self-tape. And how to market yourself in that covering letter if you have to write one, you know, and then also at the same time, how do you then get to the stage if you're lucky enough to get a self-tape or an in-person meeting? You've got to own the room, and it goes back down to craft. It's like a, you know, it goes back to the same thing that we keep saying. I mean, there's been a lot of those auditions where I think I did a decent job on that. You know, I think I did a really good job on that. Or I already daydream about the money that I'm going to get, you know. I already daydream about, with this I could buy a new house, or, you know, I could filming, if it's filming in another country, or I'm going to travel there, and daydream, manifest it. That's what I do. I manifest things as soon as I see it. It's my role. I already envision it's my role. That's the way that I work, because I think if you manifest and will it into reality, it does become it. If you already think that you've got it. I'm daydreaming when I'm reading the scripts and reading the sides. So when I don't get those roles, which happens, it's one of those things. It happens
a lot. It happens 99% of the time. You're not getting the roles from the start.
Thanks. But what I'm trying to say is, it's how do you bounce back from that, and not like beating yourself up, which is easy to do, and I've done that so many times. It's unreal, but always then going back from an outer perspective and being reflective and thinking, well, you know, every no's closer to a yes, and that is true. And what can I be doing next time? There's always something to learn. It's all, you know, you never stop learning as an actor and as a person either. There's always ways that you can be, you know, improving your craft, improving your self-tape techniques, you know, improving your covering letters, you know. And sometimes, you know, it's just the casting director, you know, a lot of people think casting directors are the main decision makers. It doesn't always work like that. You know, it's a case of it goes to the director and everything. So there's so many reasons why you don't get cast in something. It could be a case of you've not got enough major TV credits, which is obviously quite frustrating, because it's like you want that credit, so then you would have a major TV credit. But there's a multitude of reasons why you wouldn't get cast in something. So soon as I broke it down that it wasn't personal, it wasn't a reflection on me as an artist, like on my ability, on me as a person, as Luke. It's just a subjective opinion, which again I find frustrating, that someone's opinion means that you can't get a job. I find that frustrating that one person then might think you could get the job, but then that person at the time thinks that you can't, so then you've not got the job. Once I've got over that, then it's like, it's just one of those things. On to the next one.
Game. It's a numbers
game. On to the
game.
next one. You don't dwell on it. On to the next one. So now with self-tapes, when I do them, I'll edit it, obviously, on an app that I use, and I'll send it over, and I make sure that it looks good, and, you know, I've got the best take in there, and, you know, I've sent it over on time and all this, that, and the other. But once I've sent it over, I delete it off my phone, because I'm not going to look back. I'm not going to, you know, over criticize myself on the performance. You know, that tape that I've sent over, it was the best version of what I could do. It's my choice that I've made. It might not be the right choice, but I've made a choice. As long as I know that I've done the best job that I feel as Luke, as the artist, my representation of that self-tape that I can do, and I've sent it over, that's all I can do. So I delete it, I remove it, because rather than, you know, over-analysing and beating yourself up, I need to do this, that, and the other, it's one of those things, you move on to the next one. there's always jobs. There will always be jobs.
Yeah,
There
I
would
always
be an
say
acting
this.
industry with actors, so there's always auditions coming up.
Yeah, I always say this to actors and aspiring actors and new actors. There is always going to be a job out there. But what I find is that, and again, I'm not throwing shame on people. I want to make that quite clear because, I'm in a position of recording this podcast, not knowing every listener's individual experience and circumstances. So where I'm coming from is my 12 years of coaching actors and having been an actress myself and coming back into the industry. Actors are not applying for enough roles. That's what it is. That's what it boils down to. They're just not applying for enough roles.
But they're waiting for the phone to ring. They're waiting for an email to come through magically out of nowhere when it's not going to come. You've got to put the fucking work in. You've got to put it in. Nobody's going to, this is what really frustrates me is people just sit there and they wait for their agent to get them work. And it doesn't work like that. Yeah, for instance, the Netflix job, my agent got me that. Of course she did. But she knew I was working my ass off in between.
Mm-hmm.
She's more inclined to put me forward for work if she knows I'm busy. She can promote me better. She can put me forward better, knowing that I'm busy, knowing that I'm proactive, knowing that I'm staying on my craft, I'm training, knowing that I want it, I'm ready. She's more confident putting me forward with her submission to the casting director. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to, if people are represented and they're just sitting on their ass and waiting for agents, one, that relationship isn't working because it's a two-way relationship. It's your fucking career. Why would you sit on your ass and wait for things to come? If you're not making money, she's not making money, and vice versa. You're not furthering your career. You're not bettering your career. People are just waiting for auditions to come in that's perfect for them.
And
Go
also
out there
as well, can I
yeah.
just jump in quickly?
Yeah.
If you're sitting on your arse waiting by the phone, there's going to be many actors who are listening to this who don't have an agent, who are, I don't know whether they're being proactive or not, but if they're not, you're getting rusty because auditions are an opportunity to keep practicing your craft as well. Like, you must train and learn how to act in classes with guidance, because that's what an acting coach will do. They'll spot your blind spots. Your weak points, sorry. They'll spot those, they'll call them out. Not, in a nice way, they should be doing that in a constructive way. And then they'll tell you what to do to change it. But you're going to keep making that same mistake until the lesson's embedded. That's why you take training. And then after that mistake, another one comes up. And then it's your acting coach's job to say, look, that was working, we've figured that out, but now this is coming up. I mean, how many times have you struggled with the craft in class? How many times have I had to call things out to you?
On so many times, and it's all been mental. It's all been how I view myself, how I think people view me, and then getting egos involved where everyone's got one, and then when that gets involved, it doesn't help you. You've got to work with a blank canvas, to then put stuff onto the canvas to then go from moving forward. But going back to the work ethic, if you're not putting the work in, there's somebody in your casting category that wants it just a little bit more than you. It's just a little bit more proactive than you, that will get the work, that will get the opportunities. And yeah, it is difficult. There's more actors in the industry than there ever has been. There's more people wanting to become actors, some for the right reasons, some for the wrong reasons, because they want to be famous. And, there's a lot more people that are going from reality TV to actors, and casting directors using reality TV people as actors. And you know what I mean? So there's a lot more competition than there is before. There's a lot more projects that there's been before, fortunately too. But I don't, I always think, just give it, you've got to do, you've got to put the work in. You've got to look back at, if things aren't working, look back, don't keep making the same mistakes and expecting things to change, because all you're going to keep doing is making the same mistakes, rather than looking back and thinking, like you said, what do I need to do here? Do I need to improve my sense memory? Do I need to just give it a little bit more? Do I just need to let go? And that's all with the training. And that's also a self-development, is looking back on, have I got inhibitions? Have I got confidence issues? But because I wouldn't even bother going into an audition room if I know that I'm only giving it 60% out of 100, because you're not doing the best version of yourself. You're not giving the best representation of yourself to other people when you're going for something. So that's the way that I personally see it.
Yeah, and again, that's, you're saying some of the things that I often say in the classes, and I say this from a place of trying to inspire and motivate you all, which is, there is always going to be someone more motivated than you, more talented than you, more proactive than you. And that's not to pitch you against that person and start shaming yourself and, picking yourself apart and bullying yourself. It's not about that. It's to go, okay, So how can I be the most proactive version of myself? How can I be the most talented version of myself? How can I be the most confident version of myself and get myself out there? So let's go back to the training then. So you've done all 16 of the 10-week modules. How would you say they've helped you with your career so far then?
Well, they've helped shape me who I am as an actor. They've made me, I feel that I am an actor now, rather than just, again, a 50% actor that wants to become an actor but doesn't do anything towards it in terms of the craft. There is two sides of it. There's the business and there's the craft. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
The craft is where you create your characters for the future. It's where you embed, like we just spoke about. It's about what are you good at, what your weaknesses are. So it's helped me really shape myself, and it's about really nurturing and really getting those weak spots into positive spots. Because I always felt like I could get on a stage and perform, but it's also the things that I were weaker at. It's focusing on those things. But repetition. All successful people in life repeat things. They get into good routines and they do it over and over again. And that's not a secret. You look at the most successful people in various walks and circles in life, and that's what they do. And that's when I first started training. I looked up to those people. I looked up to the Al Pacinos that trained at Lee Strasberg. Lee Strasberg Institute. Marlon Brando that trained. All the, and a lot of those are my inspirations, and they all train. I'm like, if they can train, so can I. Why should I have? Why should I not train? There's no reason not to. And not making excuses for myself, being very harsh at times. That was I used to be very harsh on myself at times. When I was training, it was detrimental to myself at the time, looking back on it. But you learn from mistakes. You make the mistakes that you really shouldn't be making in the casting room in the training.
Yes.
Because then when you go into a casting room, you're like, right, well, I've made all these mistakes. You don't want to be making those mistakes in a casting situation, because like I said earlier, you'll never get seen again, or you'll be very lucky to. So if you're going into a position where I'm making those mistakes in a training situation, in a safe environment where it's allowed and it's okay to make those mistakes, I see so many people and they think you can't make a mistake and it's not allowed. And I'm like, where are you training? Because where I trained, it was really allowed. It was really pushed on to make mistakes, because that's the only way that you can look back and learn. That's how people grow and develop and learn as a person, and also as a creative, is through those mistakes. So the one thing that you always still instill in us, Louise, is making mistakes is okay. That's okay, because why should we turn away from that's not working just and always focus on the positive things? Because if you just give people positive all the time, you're creating a false sense of reality.
Yeah.
Because then when they go into a casting situation and they make mistakes that they necessarily wouldn't have been told that they were making in a training situation, they'll be like, hang on a minute, I was told that I were the best actor in sliced bread a week ago by John Smith at this, Act for Children and all that. That's what will have happened. They'll have been given, I'm positive, you're great, oh, you're fantastic, you're fucking mint. It's like, oh yeah, I am, right. So then I get a TV cast and I don't get it. I make that mistake. I forget my lines. I'm nervous. I'm missing my cues, So you're going into it, you're thinking, oh, for God's sake, I wish I'd have done better, compared to, I've made those mistakes that I made in that casting situation in that training room with Louise. I've made them already. I'm like I've said, I'm a blank canvas. All I'm doing is exploring and playing into that casting situation.
It's like you've got them out of your system in the training.
Yeah, you've got all the bad habits out of you. Because if you don't get the bad habits out of you, they'll just follow you.
Yeah.
They'll just cling on to you, and they'll follow you. You've got to get them out of your system. And even if you've got those bad habits, learn, and they keep coming up. Learn how to like have coping strategies to, if you struggle with tension and you struggle with letting go of the 9 to 5 that gets that can get to people. How can I have I got strategies, and have I got ways to relax before? Because it's a very difficult situation going into an audition room, especially in person, because you've got other competition there. How to really take yourself out of that environment and just focus on the piece. Don't focus on the person that's talking to you and trying to put you off deliberately. What have you been in? What have you done? Oh, have you been? Oh, yeah, that's great. Oh, good luck, good luck, good luck. Like how to take yourself away. What strategies can you use to go back outside and do the step out, for instance, that we do? Go into the toilet and just really have 5 minutes to yourself before you go in. Get there. All these little things that you learn that in the training. Because I think sometimes swimming in the deep end is a good thing, because I think the only way that you can learn is by making mistakes, and sometimes you have to learn through failure. There's no, let's not be scared of failure. It happens every day, every minute, but at least make it in a safe environment. So that's what I'm trying to say. Why then it all goes back to the training again.
So where do you think you would be then if you'd have had the mindset then of, do you know what, I'm not going to pay for training? Because what we were talking about on the last podcast that you were on in 2020 is actually you were broke when you first started the acting classes. And that's not me trying to like really dramatize this. Like, you were actually broke. You had lost your job. You didn't have any finances coming in, but the money that you did have, you still decided to use that on acting classes. But let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. Let's imagine you'd have taken this mindset of, do you know what, I'm broke, I'm not going to pay for acting classes, I'm just going to try and get to as many auditions as I can. I know this is all hypothetical, but do you think without the training on the 10-week modules, you would have still got to the same position that you're at now?
I think it's an hard one, isn't it? I think one of the things that I know for a fact is I'd have probably just winged it and just gone from being a course junkie or a class junkie and just gone 2 classes there. Oh yeah, and then go there. And it's like, how can you learn anything jumping around? Again, I go back to routine. That's the one thing that I knew for a fact that I have to make it a routine. I have to go every week, even if I had a shit class, even if I knew that I could have done a lot better. I'm still going back next week. I see so many people over the years that come 4 or 5 times and they're just, I'll not bother with acting. But those that stick at it, they get to where they are now because they stick at it. There's a lot more bumps than flats.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, how many times have you've told me I've got, you've really hit it home how many rejections I've had over the years, but it's like, but
do you want me to tell you that number again?
No. But for every 99 no's, there's a yes, and that yes will make your life better. And it was all worth it. I mean, that Netflix job that I got was the biggest job that I've got in my career. And the day that I got the phone call and the email, it was like, this has been a decade worth of putting every single penny that I had into the training. I couldn't throw 2 pennies together. I was honestly struggling to put food on the table, working, changing my hours at work just to make sure that I could go to the classes and I could attend auditions. So I stopped doing full-time work and then went to part-time flexi work for that. The sacrifices of not being able to go to certain holidays and certain festivals, and you've got to live a life at the same time. So it's like all that sacrifice was worth it for that one moment. And that really justified. I am so glad that I listened to my gut instinct and followed where I wanted to do, not what other people told you to do or what other people suggested or put into your brain that it was a bad idea. It vindicated and justified every single moment of that pain and frustration and rejection and bitterness that I had towards the industry at times. Like, all that was worth it for one moment. So that's the reason, that I continue to do it. But I don't know where I would be, Louise. I think I could be winging it and maybe could have got some acting roles from it, but I wouldn't have learnt a craft. I'd probably learned on the job on set, but it'd been a lot more difficult for me. It'd be a lot more inconsistent. The performances would be, one film I might have done fantastic whilst I go to something else and I'm absolutely dog shit because I wouldn't have a craft behind me, because I wouldn't know what to identify, what wasn't working, because I'd just be acting automatically because I wouldn't have a craft behind me. I'd just be like kind of winging it.
And that's why in all of our emails, if you're on our mailing list, you will see the first thing in our emails is always a graphic that says the craft first for long-term success, because I 100% believe that with every cell in my body. But you're talking about this all being worth it for that one moment. But again, it just goes back to that point that I was making at the beginning. Like, you've got to know you want this. You've got to know, because if there's any little doubt in you, the tiniest of little doubts, don't do it. Just do not do it, because, let me just get my phone out. I'm not very good at maths. I'm just going to work out exactly. So, we know you've got 0.56% of the jobs that you applied for, that you applied for overall 7,920 jobs over the last 11 years, which equate to about 15 a week. Out of that, you've had 45 jobs. So that means you've had 7,875 rejections. And yet here you are. Yeah. Here you are, still grafting your arse off, still doing it.
I think you've got to want, the end thing, that I will say, you've just got to want it enough. It's, and it's all right, actions speak louder than words. It's all right, proclaiming that you want it, but do you really want it? Mm-hmm. Are you going to walk, are you going to put £20 towards an acting class, or are you going to do it towards something else that's, do you know what I mean? It's like, what do you see important in your life? And if you know that it's acting, then by all means do that. But I go back to what I was saying before. All the best actors in the world and over the years have all trained. They continue to train. And some of them might have been to drama school, fair enough, yeah. But a lot of them use the method that you teach, and that other people, around America, especially in America, teach. Bradley Cooper, I've listened to a lot of what you've done before, your podcast. He goes back to training in between jobs, and it's like, you think, fucking hell, he's had such an amazing career as a director now and as an actor. Like, surely he doesn't need to train. He can just walk into jobs, get offered jobs left, right, and centre. No, he believes in the craft because he knows how important it is.
And I think that's important there, is having a belief system. Like, if you don't believe in the craft, fair play. Like, you go out and do it your way, but you've got to have a belief system in place. You've got to know what your values are, and for you value craft and integrity. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what it sounded like to me. So I guess I do want to come back to this point that you've raised earlier about, like, you've got to understand the business of acting as well as the craft of acting, which is another thing that I try my absolute best to instill in our students is, the one thing I always say over and over again is, like, I literally don't believe in you coming to the classes and paying for them if you're going to do absolutely nothing with them. It's going to be good for self-development and a bit of confidence, but that's not why you're here. You're here not to get confident. You're here because you want to be an actor. So, I decided to change standby from the traditional training. I mean, it never was a traditional training, but I decided to add in things that I thought would be useful for our acting students, which I hope would last them a lifetime in their careers. So things that you get on top of the classes are like, you get your 2 one-on-one tutorials, you get your actor's journal, your line learning toolkit, your business of acting boot camp, which is a separate online course. Now, these were all put in place to really, really give you the full shebang. So you could take what you're learning in the classes and the craft and then learn about the industry and put the two together and have an acting career. So out of all of those additional resources that you get, which would you say has been the one that's given you that extra push with your acting?
I think, from the crafts perspective, the journal, learning how to shape a character from back to front. And so then so even if I don't use it on paper, I'm using a journal in my head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whilst I'm on set, I'm already going back to, why am I saying this person? What's my relationship? And, that's obviously there, going from the paper version.
Yeah.
It's instilled in me. So now it's automatic. It's inbuilt in me now.
Yeah.
From the business perspective, I would say the boot camp, knowing, who you are, finding your strengths as an actor. For instance, for me, I'm a stocky northern working class actor. So why would I run away from that? Own it. Own who you are. And for a long time, I thought, well, people might not like my accent and this. And I was like, well, fuck that. I'm me. I'm the best version of me. So I'm going to make sure that I create the best acting version of myself. So then, and that's also then how you push that forward with the business side of it. How do I represent that? Rather than, the casting type thing, that a lot of people get sucked into. I think first and foremost, just focus on getting work, focus on becoming a better actor. Worry about getting casting types. When you get, if you're getting casting types, that's a good thing because you're getting work.
Yeah, I always try and tell you guys that, don't see it as a limit. It means there's a market for you right now, and as you build your profile, you can then expand beyond that.
You look at De Niro. A lot of his career he's played, mobster characters. It's like, he's won Academy Awards and everything. You think he's going to turn back around and go, well, I will cast it. Or in a bit of a casting type. I would have liked to have played a bit of more of an academic and spoke with an RP accent. Fuck that, he owned who he were. But he was a damn good actor. So he owned what he was. So I always think first and foremost, from the business perspective, look at what you bring, the traits that you bring, and push them forward. Market, you've got to market yourself properly. But for me, the one thing that I did learn and I found most useful off yourself from a craft perspective was the journal, because I think you can go back to that time and time again, even for auditions.
Yeah.
When you get work, you can use it for so many different ways. And then also the business boot camp, it was like really defining who you are and owning it. So then when you are approaching casting directors, it's like, rather than, again, being 50% thinking, are they gonna like that email? It's like, well, even if they don't read it, I know for a fact that's a damn good email. And I know I've kept it nice and simple and concise. I come across professional, but at the same time, I'm not bothering them. I'm not like sending them a pity letter.
Yeah.
I'm staying humble, I'm staying professional, but I know that I'm doing my work. So those from both sides, those are the most, I would say, the most productive things for me that I find useful. And obviously other people will find other things useful, but that's the most two things that I get out of it.
Yeah, and I want to just clarify that these are on top of the weekly classes. And we do have applications open at the minute. They're only open for another week. So if you want to join our spring 10-week method acting modules, which begin the week commencing the 11th of April 2022, then you just need to get an application in. And the application is long. It will take you about 10 minutes to fill in, maybe a little bit longer. It's long on purpose because we don't just want any old riffraff in the classes. That it's important that we get the right people in the classes. You don't have to have the talent of Al Pacino yet. That's what I'm there to help you with. But you have to fit in to our community, which is an uplifting, supportive one, where we empower one another and we are allowed to make mistakes, but we learn from them. So if you do want to get your application in, just click the link in the description of this podcast. And auditions are being held on Sunday, the 27th of March, with recalls the following week. How would you, just in a nutshell, describe the training on the 10-week modules, Luke, for those that are, like on the fence or kind of thinking about applying?
I would say they are developing you as an actor from skeleton to meat. Because when you first come in, if you're a novice, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
You think you know what you're doing, but you don't. You haven't got a clue. And that's why I go back to the inconsistency, because you might one performance or one scene, or like take one, for instance, you might do a great job and then take two, it's shit, and take. So it's like kind of you're learning how to be consistent as an actor, making your mistakes. So then we kind of, I suppose you're peeling off like an onion. You're peeling the layers off. You're breaking it down. You're going back to root source. What is blocking me from opening up to this character? Yeah. Is there any inhibitions? Learning from that, like, and then that goes to the audition scenario. So then you're like, yeah, I might have inhibitions, but you know what? I'm going to use them to my own advantage, and I'm going to put them into the character and shape the character as that character, rather than I'm going to let it stop me. So, everyone's obviously on their own journey. Some people might want to get into the industry and audition for stuff quicker. Some might want to do it a little bit slower and a bit more methodical. But you're building like a house. You're building brick by brick, kind of a foundation to use from when you do get work. Hopefully everyone gets work that, that'd be fantastic if that's what they want to do. But you're building a foundation for when you get into a casting situation. You're giving yourself the best chance to get that job, because that's really what everyone's training for, is to get work.
Yes,
you're making yourself the best version of yourself as an actor that you can be to get work. You're not doing it like we said. If you want to do it for an hobby, then just go to an amateur dramatics class, with all due respect. Just do the panto every year, and
because you'll still get satisfaction from that, because that's what you want. You want it as a hobby, and there's no shame in that.
No, there isn't. But if you want it as a career, you're clearly then wanting it to, to get paid work, and you're wanting it to get paid, consistent work to change your life for the better, because it's something you've always wanted to do, or you wouldn't be applying for the training in the first place. That's the way that I see it. So I think it's building a foundation to work from. Like, yeah. For instance, I use a little bit of Meisner, a little bit of Strasberg, even a little bit of Stella Adler, because, especially when I get props to you, as I endow them, I create relationships with them, not like I don't take them home and put them in bed or anything. You know what I mean? It's like when I'm on set, I'm like, I create a backstory. I'm looking at, when did I get this certain prop and why and who off. So then that's my method. But everyone's got a method that they might just do Meisner. But that's why it's called the method. It's not that method that you have to follow. It's a method system. It's a method that you use. And this is the thing that always people get carried away with. Oh, Lee Strasberg was only about this. I'm sure that Lee Strasberg would have really encouraged all actors to choose a method that works for them, that they find that's beneficial for them.
Well, what he used to say, actually, when he was alive, from the many books I've read of his and the footage I've seen, obviously I've never met him. He died before I was even born. But he would say, like, all good acting is because they've been using the method. And the method is based on the principle of three things: relaxation, concentration, imagination, which obviously we talk about in the classes, and then we expand upon that with the exercises. It's all an act of imagination, but first I have to relax and I have to focus. And that's what we're doing in the various different exercises and formats. And that is what makes you a better actor. That's what gets you work. Well, I say that's what gets you work. It has to be a work ethic as well, which is what you've proven today. Like, you've got to put the graft in with the business side and the castings. So in one short sentence, obviously you've done all 16 of the 10-week modules, and they are broken down into 10 weeks. In one sentence, how would you describe the experience? Just one short sentence of completing all of the 16 modules.
I built my house.
Yeah, I've built my house.
But it's because I know my foundation. I know that I've got a method now from back to front. I know myself as an artist, as an actor. And before, when I first started acting, I come into the classes. I didn't really know, I was very inconsistent. Now I know this is what I'm good at. This is what I need to improve on. I'm very open and honest about that. But what am I working towards? And before, doing, a bit wishy-washy about it from that approach, didn't really have an house. Now I have an house that I can keep putting to castings whenever I'm applying for work, whenever my agent's bringing me forward for stuff as well, whenever I'm working on, on stuff from my own and through my agent, I know that I've got an house to look back at. Yeah, and I've got a method that I can use.
It makes sense, but it's a journey, isn't it? Like you're saying, you weren't this when you first began. And I think for those people who want to apply for the training, they're like, oh, but I'm a beginner, I've got no experience. Well, you've just listened to Luke talking for the last however long. He had no experience. Like, you've got to understand it is a journey. Like, let's move away from this bloody pot noodle society, as I call it, where it's like you put your boiling hot water in and bingo, it's done. Like, that's not how an acting career works, or your Amazon Prime acting career. It doesn't work like that. It is a journey, and you've got to really embrace the ups and downs of the journey, but stay committed to the vision. And if you're committed to it, it will happen, because it's a numbers game. It's sales at the end of the day. The business side of it is sales, and the craft side of it is creativity and imagination. And you just got to get the two to work together. So, Luke, thank you so much for giving up your time to come back on the Unstoppable Actors podcast for a second time. I really hope it's been useful, and I really hope it's been inspiring for everyone. And if it has, obviously, please do leave a comment. You can leave a comment on our website. You just need to scroll down to the bottom of the page. If you're listening on Spotify or Audible, you can review. You can give us a 5-star review if you feel it deserves it. And you can also leave a review as well. Please do share this with your acting friends as well, because the more you share it, the more actors we can help, the more empowered we can be together. But just to wrap up, Luke, where can people find you if they want to follow you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram. That's the main things that I use for social media.
Yeah.
I'm also, I'm sure if you find me you can find me quickly on Google and everything. So I'm just on more social media channels. And
what are your handles? So if people want to follow you?
I think it's at Luke Goddard Act on Twitter and at Luke_Goddard_actor on Instagram.
Okay, so if you want to go and follow Luke and you want to follow his journey, you can do that. We'll link these into the description as well. And if you do want to apply for the 10-week modules, get your application in sooner rather than later. And the link for that is also in the description as well. Thank you so much, Luke. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you again. And of course, we all want to wish you so much luck and so much good success with the rest of your acting career as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
I have absolutely loved hanging out with you, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Unstoppable Actors, the essential podcast for ambitious, aspiring actors. Now, if you did, I'd really love you to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave a review. And if you would like weekly injections of inspiration, you'd like mini method acting challenges to keep you making progress with your dreams, come and join the most supportive acting community online by clicking the link in the notes to help you become an unstoppable actor.